Hello, everyone. This is the movie Captain. A tormented soldier deserter finds an officer's uniform and begins to assert power. He creates his own squad and organizes executions. He causes absolute chaos, which is inhumane. Another officer says that he will report this. The events of this black and white film, based on a true story, begin in April 1945, 2 weeks before Germany's capitulation. The main character, private deserter Willie Harold, is running along a country road. A truck full of cheerful Germans is chasing him. In the truck bed, an orchestra is playing, and the captain, sipping schnapps from the bottle, is shooting at the fleeing criminal. Luck is on Harold's side. Reaching a forest where the truck cannot go, he hides from his pursuers like a hobbit hiding from the ringwraiths. Later, at an abandoned railway station, he finds a blanket and makes foot wraps. There he meets another deserter, exhausted but armed with a rifle. After resting, they sneak onto a farm at night. On a tree near it hangs a hanged man with a sign saying, "Looting is punishable by death." The warning does not stop them. In the barn, Willie steals chicken eggs directly from under the hens, while his companion stands with a rock in hand over a sleeping guard. The disturbed chickens start clucking loudly, waking the guard. Willie orders his companion to kill the guard, but he simply runs away. The guard raises an alarm and rushes at Harold, who shoves him headfirst onto bricks. Then Willie sees how the farmers, awakened by the noise, stab his accomplice to death with pitchforks. Not wanting to add his own body to the tree, the former private flees. He makes his way along the railroad tracks past a small town. On a country road, Harold finds an abandoned car, and inside it, besides a box of apples, is a box containing a Luftwaffe captain's uniform. He hurriedly changes into the uniform, which fits him well, except for the pants, which are a little too big. Overwhelmed by his good fortune, Willie even acts out a small scene, imagining himself as an officer when he is stumbled upon by another deserter. Private Freitag, mistaking the stranger for a real captain, reports that he got separated from his unit and asked to serve under Harold's command. Initially, Harold is ready to help extract a car stuck in the mud. The imposter easily adopts the role of commander, especially given the limited options. Once the private frees the car, they travel together to a town. Along the way, the newly minted captain discreetly discards his old clothes to prevent his subordinate from suspecting anything. After dark, they arrive at an inn where the locals are not particularly friendly towards soldiers. With the war nearly lost, soldiers are deserting en masse, looting from the locals as they go. Harold exploits this animosity by questioning the townspeople about damages caused by deserters, suggesting that the government will provide compensation. This approach resonates with the locals, and even the innkeeper serves them dinner. However, Freitag's voracious eating arouses the innkeeper's suspicion that they might be deserters themselves, forced to starve on the road. Only Harold's composure and skill maintain their cover. That night, the locals test him by bringing a captured thief to his window, demanding justice. Without flinching, Harold shoots the man in the head. The next morning, they depart for the farm where Willie had previously stolen eggs. There, 3 fugitives have taken control, seating the corpses of less fortunate comrades on a sofa, tormenting the owners, and looting supplies. Harold's authoritative demeanor and commanding voice allow him to seize control of the situation, enlisting the looters into his squad. One of them notices that the captain's trousers are slightly oversized, but keeps this observation to himself. Loaded with provisions, the squad moves on. Along the way, they come across 2 soldiers pulling an anti-aircraft gun. With no other options, these soldiers also join the group. When the car runs out of fuel, the men are forced to drag it along with the gun, which eventually leads to heightened personal tensions. The convertible, now functioning on Nazi manpower, encounters a military police truck. The stern officers demand to check their documents and are ready to open fire in case of disobedience. Harold is forced to showcase impressive acting skills to convince the inspecting officer that his authority supersedes theirs. He claims that even the Führer himself sent him to the rear to investigate troubling rumors about the situation there. Taking Harold's lies for truth, the military police offer them a ride to a prisoner camp where deserters and looters are held. On the way, the same officer who had earlier shot at the fleeing Harold boards the truck, but fails to recognize him in his new uniform. The officer explains that keeping prisoners alive and maintaining their existence in such a difficult time for the country is an unacceptable luxury. He suggests that Harold, as someone personally delegated by the Führer, could help solve this problem bypassing bureaucratic delays and legal proceedings. Specifically, the officer implies that a military tribunal is needed to sentence the prisoners. But before Harold can think through this task, his squad requires food and accommodation. The camp manager, Shutta, shows Harold the prisoner barracks and brings him up to speed on the situation. During an interrogation, Harold's subordinate beats a prisoner while also taking anything of value from the others. Private Freitag believes this is wrong and asks the captain to stop the chaos. However, Harold notes that these people are doomed anyway. Their fate is already sealed. Meanwhile, the manager speaks with the chief judicial officer, Hansen, without whose consent no action can be taken against the prisoners. Hansen asks Shuda to deliver a parcel from a prisoner's daughter who earned this right through hard labor. Shuda agrees, but before taking 10 steps, pockets the contents for himself. Harold informs Shuda that he will conduct field courts-martial, based on which the prisoners can be executed. Some have already been killed, 2 were shot, and 3 were beaten to death. This enrages the justice officer, who reports the arbitrary actions of Shuda and Harold to his superiors. However, they skillfully deflect the accusations, claiming that the prisoners attacked an officer during interrogation. Nonetheless, the situation becomes dangerous, as the authorities may check Harold's credentials and discover that there is no such representative sent by the Führer. Shuda, eager to finish all business at the camp quickly, calls his superiors to obtain approval from the Gestapo for Captain Harold to conduct simplified field courts-martial, bypassing the Ministry of Justice, if Willie agrees to take full responsibility for the leadership. After receiving permission, Shuda informs Hansen's superiors, who essentially allow them to proceed without him. The justice officer gets a call from above and then sees that his crafty colleagues in the camp business have already begun addressing the problem. The prisoners are digging a large pit on the edge of the forest. Shuda leads a group of 30 prisoners out of the barracks. They march while singing a military song, even as they are driven into the pit. Harold orders an anti-aircraft gun to be brought in, and the prisoners are shot at with it, their bodies torn apart. After the first round, some survivors remain. They try to escape, but the soldiers reload the gun and open fire again. From the realization of what has been done, Willie feels like screaming, but he keeps his composure. If his deception is discovered, he will face the same fate. When the anti-aircraft gun jams, the soldiers finish off the survivors with handheld weapons. Only Freitag refuses to participate in the execution. After a brief dinner of hot potatoes, the execution squad returns to carrying out their duties. Freitag stands aside until it becomes clear that faint moans are coming from the pit full of corpses. A wounded prisoner is still alive. To finish him off, someone must climb into the grave itself. The captain orders his orderly to end the unfortunate man's suffering, which he reluctantly does. In just one day, Harold and Shuda executed 90 prisoners. Hansen reports this to his superiors when he hears shouting outside the window. The remaining prisoners refuse to bury the bodies. The officer orders the soldiers to fill in the graves themselves, and they are forced to comply. As they cover the bodies with lime, it becomes clear that some of the executed are still alive, but not for long. In the mess hall, the personnel celebrate a job well done, praising Captain Harold. The guests enjoy a performance by 2 entertainers from among the prisoners. The repertoire is filled with crude toilet humor. They also join the officers in singing a hymn to camaraderie. Meanwhile, the soldiers amuse themselves with casual and routine brawling. The officers engage in polite conversation with the entertainers. Willie wants to know why the talented men ended up in prison, but they refuse to say. He then suggests playing a game to pretend that they are all thieves. For example, he claims that he himself stole an officer's uniform. Taking the veiled confession as a joke, the guests learn that one of the entertainers robbed a dead comrade. This enrages Shuda, but he is soon distracted by the rowdy soldiers. The fight spills outside and becomes a mass brawl. However, after letting off steam, the instigators reconcile and head to the camp to beat the prisoners who earlier refused to bury the graves. The beating is noticed by the officers who order it to stop. However, Harold's subordinates do not listen. To avoid losing face in front of the camp manager, the imposter captain is forced to improvise. At first, he fires his pistol near the ear of the offending soldier, temporarily deafening him. Then he lines up the beaten prisoners, ties them together with a rope, and drawing his pistol, orders them to run. As the prisoners flee, Willie shoots one in the back, and the others drag their fallen comrade. Harold hands the pistol to one of the entertainers and orders him to do the same. The entertainer kills the second prisoner, but his stage partner shoots himself in the head instead of obeying the order. The captain waits as the entertainer raises the pistol again, one less fugitive to chase. While Willie reloads the pistol, the unfortunate target drags 3 bodies behind him. Shuda's wife takes the weapon and begins shooting. Everyone present joins in, and a dozen bullets pierce the exhausted body before it collapses into the mud. In the morning, Freitag notices that Harold's trousers are being altered. They are far too long, and clearly not made for his height. But Freydig says nothing, knowing that pointing it out in these circumstances could be deadly. Shuda approaches the tent to announce that the unit for combing the area for deserters is ready. The captain steps out in his tunic and underwear, which does not stop him from delivering an inspiring speech and sending everyone on their way. While the locals are absent, Harold's squad throws a feast, complete with drunken dancing and mocking the prisoners. Returning with his men, Shuda finds an abandoned camp littered with corpses. Drunken members of Harold's crew stumble out of the kitchen, and the captain himself can barely stand. Suddenly, the mess hall explodes, taking everyone inside with it. British artillery bombards the camp, leveling it to the ground, and Allied aircraft deliver an explosive greeting to the Germans. After the air raid, a staggering Harold picks up his cap and coat from the ground. He orders the survivors to assemble. It's time to leave this once hospitable place. Alongside the deserter soldiers, a few prisoners have also survived. The captain commands them to find military uniforms. A title card informs the audience that nothing remains of the camp except the gate post, and the rest has turned into farmland. A colorful shot shows what the area looks like today. The group drives into a city in a truck with the words "Harold Swift Justice" painted on the side. Their fraudulent schemes now resemble the antics of the Antelope GNU crew from the Golden Calf. But unlike the great schemer Ostap Bender, Harold has no respect for the law. Speeding through the streets, they stop near the town hall, where a white flag with "Welcome" written on it hangs. The local authorities are welcoming the Allies, who are about to enter the city. Harold's soldiers immediately execute the mayor as he steps out of the door at the wrong time. After seizing provisions, Harold heads to the finest house in town, where the deserters throw a wild party. But then a woman arrives and ruins everything. One of Harold's loyal subordinates brazenly takes the lady who had caught the captain's eye. Retribution comes quickly. The insolent man, forgetting both subordination and the right of the first night, is dragged off by his former comrades to cool off in the bathtub, just as he tries to retire with the woman. Willie enters the now empty room and removes his tunic. Soon after, Harold judges a troublemaker who dared to challenge his authority as the alpha male. Accusing the man of looting, treason, and other routine offenses for the squad, the captain delivers a death sentence. In the courtyard, the soldier is stripped naked and ordered to run. He takes a few slow steps before a volley of rifle fire ends his sinful life. Following this, Harold and his men throw an even wilder party, complete with singing, dancing, scantily clad women, and rivers of alcohol. The next morning, they are completely incapacitated, sprawled out wherever they fell. It is in this state that the military police find and arrest them. Willie, pretending to be a captain, tries to eat his documents, but the officers manage to save part of them. The papers clearly state, in German, that he is nothing more than a private. Despite the numerous crimes, the court offers Harold a chance at parole instead of a death sentence. His resourcefulness, iron will, and the manners of a true officer earn him this reprieve. Instead of being hanged, he is sent to the front lines, a proposal he eagerly accepts. However, not long after, he escapes using a rope made of tied bed sheets. The former captain wanders through a forest strewn with skeletons, literally stepping over bones before disappearing into the dark shadows of the woods. A final title card reveals his fate. On May 23, 1945, Willie Harold was arrested. A year and a half later, on November 14, 1946, he and 6 accomplices were executed by court order for war crimes. At the time of his death, he was only 21 years old.